The Chargers are headed into this week against the Saints with another long injury report, but if they could just keep Justin Herbert protected, they will win this game.
You are Locked On Chargers, your daily podcast on the Los Angeles Chargers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, and welcome into the Locked On Chargers podcast. I'm your host, Daniel Wade, joined as always by my co-host, David Drogemeyer, and we've been covering the Chargers now for 9 seasons together, but this is our 7th year as the host of the Locked On Chargers podcast, bringing you your team every day. Thank you to the everydayers out there for making us your first listen, and to make sure that you never miss the show, go subscribe or follow for free in the Locked On Chargers YouTube channel, and listen wherever you get your podcast from. David, what do we got today?
Daniel, Justin Herbert proved on Monday night that if you give him time, he can shred any defense that is out there. So a big key in this one is making sure that you protect Justin Herbert and let him go be surgical. On defense, it's all about rattling the rookie quarterback, Spencer Rattler. Get in his face, change the sight picture, confuse him, make him have to think past his first read. The Saints want to keep things easy for him. Let's make things more difficult. And then we're going to finish things up with our bold and game predictions.
Yeah, and it gets bolder and bolder every single week, and you know Athir is there with his bold prediction this week as well. But I do want to tell everyone that today's episode is brought to you by PrizePicks. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL and use the code all lowercase LockedOnNFL to win $50 instantly when you play $5. David, it is keys for success getting into what it's going to take for the Chargers to avoid a big-time upset, frankly, on Sunday against an undermanned New Orleans Saints team that is starting their backup quarterback. But the Chargers are not starting their backup quarterback, and that's where we have to start here. And it seems simple, right? Protect Justin Herbert. But I think the bigger point here is because the injury list that we're going to talk about, right? Ladd McConkey not practicing at all this week. Quentin Johnston, Will Dissly, the same thing. Darius Davis, the same thing. Last week, it wasn't perfect from the receiving core. But Justin Herbert, on the times he was protected, absolutely shredded that defense. And even sometimes when he wasn't protected, was shredding that defense. But I think, David, when you're looking into this game, one of the key things that's going to decide this game is if the Chargers can keep him upright. If they terrorize this Chargers offensive line and start derailing their offense, it's going to be a game, and it's going to be a close game. The best thing the Chargers can do is protect Justin Herbert. And if they do, they should win.
Absolutely. And when you look at Justin Herbert's numbers when he is protected, they are pretty darn good. 82, 116 for 953 yards, a completion percentage over 70%. His highest yards per attempt average at 8.2, 5 touchdowns, 0 interceptions, and also 6 of his 8 big-time throws. Big-time throws are defined as a pass with excellent ball location, timing, and generally thrown further down the field and in a tighter window. So
he had 4 of
Justin
those last
Herbert,
week, which is
crazy.
crazy.
He had exactly 4 of them last
yeah.
week. So that just goes to show you that when you protect Justin Herbert, you give him time, that guy can put the ball anywhere he wants on the football field, and he is exceptionally dangerous.
And I was honestly surprised to see that the Saints had 2 pass rushers that had 27-plus pressures so far this year. Carl Granderson and also Chase Young both have eclipsed that number, which is crazy because Khalil Mack leads the Chargers with 22. So the fact that they have 2 guys that are 5 more than that and 1 guy that's 7 more than that, like that's pretty scary. I think also you feel better about your tackle situation than you do the guard situation. Another reason why it's so important, because teams don't have to blitz the Chargers to have success. All they're doing is running stunts and things like that, and they can find ways that by simulating pressure and moving guys around to get pressure when they're not actually blitzing. And I think that's one of the most frustrating things. Maybe you do some more RPOs. They've done it a little bit this year, 8 yards per attempt when they do it. So I think that is an option. And then I think it really what's most alarming is the interior, which hasn't been able to figure it out all year as far as passing stunts, being able to pass protect. But it's so important. And David, especially in a game like this, where it feels like it's all hands on deck, especially with what the receiving options are looking like potentially on Sunday.
Absolutely, and that's why my biggest key here on the offense is get everybody involved. It's going to take a village here because the Chargers, as you just mentioned, are down most of their premier pass catchers. Ladd McConkey, Quentin Johnston, Will Dissly, probably not going to play in this football game. So it's going to take everybody to try to come up with that production. We're talking Kimani Vidal in the passing game, not just the screen game. Like, get him in some actual routes. This guy has legit hands. Let's use it. Hayden Hurst has to show up. He has been invisible since the Chargers have signed him. Fortunately for him, there's been a couple of examples this year of tight ends going absolutely off against the New Orleans Saints. Dallas Goedert went 10 for 170, including a 61-yard catch, and Travis Kelce went 9 catches for 70 yards. So if Hayden Hurst can suit up, can be healthy, can go out there and run some good routes, there's going to be some opportunities for him to go out there and make some plays. And right now, the Chargers offense desperately needs that.
And we'll see if he plays, right? Didn't practice Wednesday, practice on Thursday. The hard thing about this week is it's a short week.
Yeah.
It's Monday Night Football. Ladd McConkey finished the game last week, but he has less time to actually get better than he did last week. Quentin Johnston, obviously he missed last week, went into a doubtful. Ladd was questionable. We'll see what happens on Friday. The hard thing is today we're not going to be able to see what the injury report looks like or what these game designations are. But yeah, it is going to be Josh Palmer has to step up again after his best game. Jalen Reager, I can't believe I'm saying has to step up. Stone Smart, another guy that has to step up. Maybe it's Eric Tomlinson if Hayden Hurst can't go. These guys have to be able to step up. And if Justin Herbert has time, he's going to give these guys opportunities and he's going to elevate them. Simi Fehoko, same thing. I'm not even going to bring up Brendan Rice because obviously last week that was a disaster. But to my next big key here, I didn't think I would have to make a key for this, but here we are. Score a touchdown. That's an offensive key for success this week. Score a touchdown. Get into the end zone. And I've been sitting here quietly as I have done a quiet internal protest, and I actually have not trimmed my beard since the last time the Chargers scored a second half touchdown. The problem is that's week 1. My job is getting upset with me. My job is saying you work in a bar. I'm gonna have to start wearing like ties in my beard soon. But I was like, it's a principle matter, right? I can't shave it until the Chargers get in the end zone in the second half. I'm thinking about just making it any kind of touchdown. After last week, it feels fair. So I don't know. You guys can tell me in the YouTube comments at us about Locked On LAC, but the Chargers only have 9 touchdowns this year through 6 games. The Saints have allowed 10 touchdowns over the last 2 games and 42 points per game. Get into the end zone. Get into the end zone in both halves, right?
Both. Every quarter.
I need to get this beard trim this week. I have a haircut planned. I am confident that they're going to get it done. But David, I didn't think I would have to tell this team to try to score a touchdown.
No, I know. And this guy's looking more and more like the Scots guy on the commercial with the big red beard.
He's
starting to get out of hand. It's starting to get out of hand. But
Game of Thrones guy.
The Chargers have not scored a touchdown in their last 15 consecutive drives. It is disgustingly bad. You got to fix it against this team, against this defense, who is literally letting anybody score. Not necessarily in the red zone, because they've been very good at that, but outside the red zone, the big, deep, explosive shots, it's been there. But the Chargers need to get back to who they want to be, which is running the football, Daniel. They absolutely have to run the ball. And when they do run the ball, I want to see them run behind Zion and Bradley Bozeman. J.K. Dobbins averages 9.4 yards per attempt when he runs behind Zion Johnson, and he averages 6.3 yards per attempt when he's running up the middle next to Bradley Bozeman. So run behind Zion, run behind Bradley Bozeman. 370 of J.K. Dobbins' 478 yards have come from rushing towards the left side.
I mean, I'm surprised that the numbers are that good, honestly. I mean, I'm not surprised that's most of where his yards are. It feels like every run the Chargers have is to the left side, and when it's Rashawn Slater, Zion Johnson, I get it. That's probably your best duo. Bradley Bozeman gets in there as well. Yeah, of course. Like, it's hard to even say the running game at this point because there were 4 weeks in a row at under 3.5 yards per carry. Yeah. It's obvious going into every week, hey, this team needs to be able to run the ball to be effective offensively. The problem is I'm getting tired of asking for it. I'm getting tired of having to beg a Greg Roman offense to have an above average running game, which is something that just hasn't existed in his entire coaching career of being an offensive coordinator. That's never been the issue. Now we're 4 weeks in a row of a subpar running game. It has to happen at some point. They have an okay matchup here, right? Like, it's nothing special over there. I mean, they should be able to run the football with the guys that they have in and out of their lineup. Go do it, because if not, I just don't know how much faith I have in this offense, because even when Justin Herbert put the Superman cape on last week, it wasn't enough, right? It has to be a little more, especially in the red zone. So hard to score touchdowns in the red zone when you can't run the football. But we had to get into the defensive side of things, and we've talked about rattling the rookie. Today, we're talking about rattling the rattler, Spencer Rattler. A few tough games to start his NFL career. Jesse Minter's probably going to make it a little tougher. So we're getting into that and more on today's Locked On Chargers podcast. First, though, I need to tell you guys about PrizePicks because PrizePicks is America's #1 daily fantasy sports app with over 5 million active members. PrizePicks is the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Unlike other apps, on PrizePicks, it's just you against the numbers. All you do is pick more or less on 2 to 6 player stat projections and watch the winnings roll in. You can now win out to 100 times your money on PrizePicks with as little as 4 correct picks, and PrizePicks is the best way to get action on sports in most states, including California, Texas, and Georgia. For this week, you can go with J.K. Dobbins rushing for more or less than 76.5 rushing yards, which he's only done once in his last 4 games. But this one might be the lock of the week. You can also go with Cameron Dicker making more or less than 1.5 field goals. If you hit both of those, you're in the money. So download the PrizePicks app today. Use the code LOCKEDONNFL and get $50 instantly when you play $5. That's code LOCKEDONNFL on PrizePicks to get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to get the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. PrizePicks, run your game. I also need to tell you guys about ZBiotics. Pre-alcohol probiotic drink by ZBiotics is the world's first genetically engineered probiotic. It was invented by PhD scientists to tackle rough mornings after drinking. Here's how it works. When you drink, alcohol gets converted into a toxic byproduct in the gut. It's in this byproduct, not dehydration, that's to blame for the rough next day that you have. Pre-alcohol produces an enzyme to break this byproduct down. Just remember to make ZBiotics your first drink of the night. Drink responsibly, and you'll feel your best tomorrow. Now that I have a kid that she's actually sleeping through the night, I've been able to sneak away a couple times to be able to drink alcohol. The problem is being hungover with a 6-month-old is terrible, and I wouldn't suggest it. I've had ZBiotics, very, very helpful. The pre-alcohol has definitely helped me have the energy to take care of a 6-month-old, which is very, very, very hard to do. All you have to do is go to zbiotics.com/LockedOnNFL to learn more and get 15% off your first order when you use the code LockedOnNFL at checkout. ZBiotics is backed with a 100% money back guarantee, so if you're unsatisfied for any reason, they'll refund you, no questions asked. Remember to head to zbiotics.com/LockedOnNFL and use the code LockedOnNFL to check out and get 15% off. David, let's get into the defensive side of things here, and one thing that Jesse Minter has been very good at all season is if you don't have a good quarterback, it's probably going to be a very, very long day for your offense, right? We saw him put Bo Nix in a blender. We saw him do it to a guy who probably should be a backup of Gardner Minshew in week 1. Bryce Young will never be the same after what happened in week 2, right? Got benched.
Patrick Mahomes too.
He's just now coming back. Bryce Young is just now coming back from what the Chargers did to him in that game. He's just now getting able to supplant Andy Dalton. But yeah, I mean, it hasn't mattered. Most quarterbacks, honestly, pretty much every quarterback has had a tough game when they go up against Jesse Minter's defense. But when you're talking about this guy specifically, David, a later round draft pick, guy that wasn't part of the top crop of quarterbacks that were drafted this year, gets thrust into the lineup because of a Derek Carr injury, and it will be Spencer Rattler this week. It's already been announced, so don't worry about potentially being Derek Carr. And David, it's been rough, right? I mean, he's thrown 2 interceptions in 2 games, but he's also fumbled the ball 3 times in 2 games. He's been sacked 11 times in 2 games. Like that's a tough start. And Jesse Minter's defense has to kind of triple down on the performances we've seen against him so far.
Absolutely. I mean, they need to confuse him. They need to frustrate him. And I want to see them change the sight picture post-snap. And that's what the Jesse Minter defense kind of does organically. They have a lot of simulated pressures. They want to keep you guessing. They want you to try to figure out who's going to drop into coverage, who is going to be coming after the quarterback. You're going to have to figure that out after the snap. And I think when you confuse a rookie quarterback who is definitely wanting to get rid of the ball, they're going to make very simple reads for him. If you make him just have to think that extra second, that is as long as it takes for Khalil Mack to get in his face and put him in the dirt. So they absolutely need to frustrate him, get after him, and also be prepared to defend his mobility, because his best plays so far as a starting quarterback for the Saints has been when they've got him on the move and they've allowed him to throw on the run. So that's one thing that you have to make sure that you're able to get pressure on him to disrupt his ability to use that athleticism and that ability to throw on the run.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's also just a good chance for this pass rush to get back on track. We talked about it yesterday on the crossover. Hopefully this is Joey Bosa's return. That makes a big, makes a big difference. But also they have some guys that are good matchups for the Chargers defense. I mean, Talisa Fuaga, a guy that we loved coming out of the draft, is potential, trade down later on in the first round. Maybe you could get a guy like that. Maybe he's better at guard.
Yeah.
But so far, he's allowed 4 sacks and 18 pressures just over the last 3 games. He's had 2 out of the last 3 games. He's given up at least 7 pressures. Rattler has been sacked
Khalil
11
Mack right
times over the last 2 games. I mean, anything less than 4 sacks in this game feels disappointing to me. Like, the Chargers should absolutely bottle him up. I mean, so far this year, the Chargers have allowed 6 passing touchdowns. They have 6 interceptions. It's a 1-to-1 ratio. You're just as likely to throw an interception as you are to throw a touchdown against this defense. And every guy they've played so far has played more games than the guy they're going up against this week. So I think they have to get it done against Spencer Rattler and not let him get into this game. He's had bad passes 60% of the time. That's his on-target rate is 60%. For example, Justin Herbert's is close to 80%, 79%. My other thing here, don't let Alvin Kamara take over in the passing game. And the reason I say this is because of what James Conner did last week. 2 catches for 51 yards. He had the long 33-yarder that set up the game-winning field goal, but both of his catches, just dump-offs, right? They weren't routes that were getting run. Both of his catches went for 18-plus yards on 2 catches. Alvin Kamara already has a 57-yard touchdown on a screen pass. He's one of the best screen pass running backs in the NFL right now, if not the best. That's just what he's been able to do. They've been trying to pepper him the last 2 weeks, and it hasn't been working well for them, at least as far as like a yards per catch type of efficiency. But he has 15 targets over the last 2 weeks, and the Chargers tackling and angles, like you talked about yesterday, were atrocious. So that has to be, like, if you let Alvin Kamara take this game over, they're not going to need Spencer Rattler. So I need you to bottle that up and expect them to be dumping it off to him often.
100%. Yeah, he is actually probably the best pass catching running back in the NFL right now. I know that he leads in receptions, and I think he's second in receiving yards. Just 34 receptions and 252 yards and a touchdown. So he's definitely one of the most dangerous pass catching running backs that you're going to have to defend. He is very patient. He is very quick. Seems like he's kind of gliding out there. He's not really running full speed. But then before you know it, he's 25 yards down the field. So he is a very, very patient runner. But the Chargers need to make sure that they keep the Saints under 100 yards rushing. It's very important. They're 2-1 when they rush for 100 plus. They are 0-4 when they rush for less than 100 yards. So that is a very, very important key. They want to run the ball. It's very, very important to their offense, especially with an inexperienced quarterback that doesn't have a lot of time on task in the NFL. It's something that they're going to want to do. So if you force them to throw the ball more than they want by stopping the run, then you're going to put yourself in a very good situation to try to win this game.
Yeah, and I mean, if you look at, the Chargers' biggest weakness from last week, that's what it was. Like, last week, the Cardinals wide receivers had 41 receiving yards.
Yeah, they got shut down.
41 receiving yards between the 4, I think, receivers that caught passes last week. Like, that's crazy, It was the running game, right? You got bullied. 6.2 yards per carry you allowed last week.
188 yards. Yeah.
Not only that, you're just getting gashed. You're letting them flip the field position so quickly. Mm-hmm. I think, another guy that goes in both of these things, is Taysom Hill. Watch out for Taysom Hill, who could be back.
He's like a triple threat. He can run, throw, and catch.
He's tough. He runs tough, My last thing here, get back to stopping big plays, right? Like, that has been, I mean, if you look at the Chargers' losses, the crazy thing is the Chargers have given up a 44-plus yard touchdown in every single one of their losses so far this year. It's crazy. I mean, you have the Xavier Worthy 54-yarder. You have a 55-yarder to Calvin Austin, again, in the Steelers game. And then last week, you have the 44-yard run by Kyler Murray that was just a total backbreaker in that moment because you knew you couldn't score touchdowns to try to keep up with it, right? Even in a game you won, Alexander Madison has a 31-yard touchdown. You've given up in 6 games 4 30-plus yard touchdowns. Not good enough, right? This defense is too good for them. Make them earn it against you because teams usually aren't going to be able to do that. If it gets a long, drawn-out drive against this defense, chances are they're going to put you in a bad situation and be able to get off the field, maybe even knock you out of field goal range. So I think that's the last thing for me. Just stop those explosive plays, and especially in a game like this. Like, they haven't really let Spencer Rattler be the Spencer Rattler he was in college, where he was just a gunslinger whipping it all over the place. I mean, his air yards per attempt are pretty low. It's pretty much a lot of short passes. Yeah, I think they'd almost be better off they just let him chuck it around. Like, who cares? You're probably not going to win anyways, because he can be dangerous in those aspects if he's running around and dropping deep bombs. And if you're the Chargers and you're giving up pass interferences, you're giving up 40-plus yard chunk plays, that's how you let a bad team stay with you. And that's how these shows are always going to be about. Don't play down to your competition. Don't let bad teams stay with you when you're not a bad team. And I still don't think the Chargers are a bad team. So we're going to talk about what our bold in-game predictions are. Could it be a big Jalen Reager game? Could it be a big Kimani Vidal game? Will we see DJ Chark in this game? We have all that and more to get into on today's Locked On Chargers podcast. First, I need to tell you guys about FanDuel, because NFL fans, you can start the season with a big return on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats for you, live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. This is great for live in-game betting, and right now, hockey's back, NBA's back, football fully going. The World Series is this week. What are we doing? This is the best time. But I'm going to be looking at the Chargers game, and the Chargers are still 7.5-point favorites against the New Orleans Saints this week, especially going up against a backup quarterback. I'm staying away from the anytime touchdown scores this week, like I told you. I'm looking at point totals in the second half. I'm looking at unders there because I need this Chargers team to prove it to me this weekend. But the good news is if you go on FanDuel, you can get started with all the sports action going on with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. All you have to do, put your first $5 bet in on FanDuel. That's FanDuel.com. David, time to get into our bold predictions for the week. Thank you to everyone who hit us up at Locked On LAC on Twitter or called into the voicemail line at 323-524-7924. We appreciate the everydayers out there, and we thank you for making us your first listen as we go into what kind of feels like a must-win game for the Chargers. If you need a second listen, make sure to check out the new slate at Locked On NFL, because you won't need any coffee in the morning with Tyler the Madman Rowland giving you his NFL takes, or you can kick back in the barbershop with my boy Tony Wiggins as they both bring on the local experts who cover their team every single day. But you guys can check that out on podcast or YouTube, wherever you get either of those things. David, let's get into our bold predictions here. Who to start with? We got a lot of good ones this week on Twitter. Let's start with JT, who says Herbert 2+ touchdowns. Jalen Reager has a breakout game. So this is interesting because I did not expect him to be as involved in the offense as he was last week. Do we see him maybe get a redemption this week?
He's definitely going to have the opportunity for that redemption with all the injuries that the Chargers are going to be dealing with. They're going to have to patch this thing together like we talked about. This is going to take everybody, and he owes us. After that, time where he fumbled inside the 5-yard line and coughed it up and gave it right back to the Arizona Cardinals, which pretty much changed the complexion of that football game. I kind of really believe that. He owes the Chargers and Charger fans to go out there and go make some plays. Go erase that bad taste in everybody's mouth and go make a big play and go make everybody happy that the Chargers brought you in to help with their wide receiver woes.
Yeah. I hope so, obviously. It'll be really interesting. It feels like you'll have to have a big role. We'll see what happens at Friday practice, right? Like, hopefully you get DJ Chark back, right? Yes. We don't know that yet. That'll help. Josh Palmer also, had his best game of the year last week too, and had a couple really, really good moments and an incredible sideline toe tap catch.
Yeah.
But awesome. I mean, I think my big thing with Jalen Reager is like, don't get caught up too much trying to use him as that gadget guy. I mean, maybe you'll find more success with it this week, but last week it pretty much got shut down every single time they tried to do anything gadget play related. Maybe use him as a decoy to, do that little fake wide receiver screen, pop pass over the top that Quentin Johnson has scored on this year already. Maybe that's something you do and use him as a decoy, since you did kind of use him as a gadget guy last week. And teams are going to be expecting you to be trying to go horizontally and not down the field with this situation you have in your receiving core right now. So maybe I think that's a good option. Herbert 2+ touchdowns. Maybe 2 more than he's had last week. So obviously that feels like a little bit of a bold prediction. Let's get to this next one here from Athir, who thinks one of the Chargers running backs is in for a big-time performance. Let's see what he has for us.
Dan, David, this is Athir. My bold prediction for Sunday game. Kimani Vidal coming out poly. 105 rushing yards, 2 rushing touchdowns. Chargers win 27-13. Let's go.
Athir, I love you. I would love that. I mean, I think that's somewhat similar to what I had last week, right? Like, I was hoping to see the Kimani Vidal breakout. It still doesn't feel like we've seen him at this point. It's 7 carries for 21 yards, 3 yards per carry. Hopefully they get him involved as a receiver too, though, right? He has one of the longest touchdowns for the Chargers this season. Oh, wait, actually the longest receiving touchdown of any Charger so far this season, which is a foreshadowing for me. But I hope we see it. So far, it's been nothing special, right? And he hasn't had much to work with, but it's such an incredibly small sample size. if he could break out, it would give me a lot more confidence in this running game going forward.
If we were talking a little bit more like 105 all-purpose yards, maybe I can be on board with that. But just given the lack of touches, I don't know if that changes in this game. It just feels like they're kind of treading water until Gus Edwards gets back. They just
also have been bad at running the football. Like, what, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, as a team, they've been bad. It's not just a Kimani Vidal thing. It's as a team, they can't run block in the last couple games.
He just hasn't had a lot of opportunities to change that fortune. So I just don't know if that changes in this game.
No, we'll see what happens. If you can have a big game, though, it would be awesome.
It would be.
Let's get to this one here from Caleb Collins, who says, DJ Chark returns in this game and scores a 35-plus yard touchdown in the first offensive possession that he plays. That would be awesome. Part of the bold prediction is just that he plays in this game because we don't know that yet. But yeah, the Chargers only have one 35-plus yard receiving touchdown this year, and it was Kimani Vidal that did it. Not any of their wide receivers, not any of their tight ends. It was the rookie and the first ever time he touched a football. So, David, are you seeing now DJ Chark potentially? It would be great to see a long touchdown to help open things up for the offense.
I can see this one. I do actually expect Jalen Reager to be out there, but I expect DJ Chark to also be out there and to be used exactly how they want to use him, which is by stretching the field, throwing it deep, letting him go, run under a Justin Herbert pass. That's what they brought him in to do, and I expect them to utilize him in that fashion right away.
And let's get to this last one here from John Clark, who says the Chargers score an offensive touchdown in the fourth quarter. It ordinarily wouldn't be that bold, but this offense is taking bold to new levels. For the sake of my beard and my job, please do, right? Let's score in the second half. I mean, this just goes to the point of finishing a game, David. Yeah. Like, it's gone long enough. It's been 5 straight games. Figure it out, for God's sakes.
Yeah, fix it. I don't want to hear any more excuses. Go out there and punch it in. You're going up against one of the worst run defenses in the NFL. Yes, they're great in the red zone. I don't care. Figure it out. Go get in the end zone. That's all it takes. Just
I don't care if you're up 35-3 in the going into the fourth quarter. I don't care.
In the end zone.
I don't care if you're up 35-3 in the fourth quarter. Score a touchdown again. Score, right?
Again,
like score.
Yeah, you
I don't care if you're up 42-0
at
halftime. I need a second half touchdown. Like, I don't care what the score is. Pedal to the metal, finish games, show that you're a team that can finish games.
Get it done.
It's not that hard. I mean, well, easy for me to say, but like, it would just do so much, right? Like, it's such a simple thing to enforce in this team, finishing games like that, and this team needs that if they want to be a Jim Harbaugh type of team. So let's get into our own bold prediction here, David. What do you have this week for your bold prediction?
I have Khalil Mack getting back in the sack column. I'm going 2 sacks and a forced fumble. Khalil Mack, the ageless wonder, goes out there and he manhandles a rookie and gets Spencer Rattler on the ground multiple times. He's going to be seeing ghosts, and they're all going to be looking like Mack trucks.
Yeah, it's funny. We both went Khalil Mack. I thought you went Mack last week. I was like, this is probably a safe week to go Mack. Yeah, I have 3 sacks, 2 tackles for loss, 1 forced fumble. Very, very similar. Only player with 30-plus forced fumbles in his career that plays in the NFL right now.
Man. It's such a pleasure to
gets a great matchup with Tulisa Fuaga. And we know that Khalil Mack loves sacking Derek Carr, and so since he won't be able to do that in this game, he can use, Spencer Rattler as his avatar.
By proxy, yeah.
David, time to get into our game predictions. What do you have the score being for this game and why?
Yeah, so unfortunately for the Chargers, they have been really, really bad lately. Fortunately for the Chargers, they're going up against the Saints defense, and the Saints defense has been really, really bad. It has to be a get-right game. The Chargers need to remember how to play offense again. I expect that they're going to be able to confuse Spencer Rattler on defense. Jesse Minter is going to have a field day with him. He's going to have a lot of fun on that side of the ball. And then the Chargers offense is going to remember how to run the football. And so I have them beating the New Orleans Saints 24-13.
Yeah, I like that score. I think that's similar to what Athir had. I think he had it 27-13. I think that's all in the right range. I do think it'll be a dominant game by the Chargers defense in this one, even with some of the guys they potentially won't have. I'm expecting Christian Fulton to be out there. I have more faith now in these young corners. If they can just cut out the bonehead plays like Kamara had last week, you're talking about a really legitimate group that's played well, even with the bonehead plays. Yeah. They have been a net positive. End of story. Yeah, I still don't fully trust the Chargers offense, right? This is a game they should put up 30.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
It's a game they should put up 30.
I wanted
even
to.
with this style, right? Even with this style, I can't trust it though.
Yeah.
I do think they'll get into the end zone. I do think I'll be able to trim this beard this week. I have it Chargers 23, Saints 10. That's
We're
kind
pretty
of
much right there. Yeah, we're right there.
That's where the vibe is with me right now. I like them. FanDuel, minus 7.5. That's the number. Like, it's hard to win by a touchdown. Maybe they cut it closer at the end, right? And make it seem closer than it really is. I think the Chargers get back on the winning side of things, though. I think this is one of the easier games left on their schedule, especially with what the circumstances are, especially since you're not traveling to New Orleans and going West Coast to East Coast. Get it done. It feels like a must win to me. Must win from the standpoint of I can't have confidence that this is a playoff team at all if you lose this upcoming game. Like, it's just going to be impossible with what teams you have coming up on your schedule for me to actually believe in this team if you go lose to the New Orleans Saints on Sunday. That's just where I'm at. Now, could they go beat a couple of really good teams and get me back? Sure, potentially. But how am I supposed to think you're going to beat the Ravens or the Chiefs or the Falcons, right? Or even just these above average teams if you can't beat a team like the Saints this weekend? Get it done. You lost against a bad team last week. I'll let you have one. It can't happen again. It stops now. Go get it done. Get back on the right track and start taking advantage of an AFC that's in absolute shambles right now. But that's going to wrap things up for today's show. Both of us have it being a big Chargers win, which will mean a big-time post-game show on Sunday night live on the Locked On Chargers YouTube channel. So make sure you guys go subscribe or follow for free there and listen wherever you get your podcast from, as well as finding the show every day on our social media. You can find us on Twitter at LockedOnLAC, where a lot of these bold predictions came from, on Instagram at Locked On Chargers, and our Locked On Chargers Facebook page. You can find me on Twitter at Dan Talk Sports and David Drogemeyer on Twitter at DroTalkSD. But make sure you guys are back here Sunday night. I think we'll be talking about a big-time win for this team, getting back on track in a sense, and have a much funner live show to talk about everything going on. But until then, guys, take it easy and go Bolts.